Good morning. Welcome to the International Forum on Online Sexual Exploitation. My name is Sunyoung Yoon, and I'm Head of Education Development at Women's Human Rights Institute of Korea. I would like to give a big thank you to the presenters and participants joining us online despite your very busy schedules. Our theme is support for child and youth victims of online sexual exploitation. Sexual exploitation of minors online has become a prevalent issue because of the mobile devices and technologies that are used. The government has been making an effort to amend the relevant laws in order to prevent sexual exploitation and to support the victims, but there remain a lot of challenges ahead. WHRIK, through this forum, hopes to have a better understanding of what sort of efforts are underway across the world to prevent sexual exploitation of children online and to support the victims. And today's forum is co-hosted by WHRIK and the Canadian Embassy in Korea. Online sexual exploitation of minors is a growing problem not just in Korea but across the world, and there's a lot of effort underway to stem this problem. We hope that this forum will help raise public awareness of this problem. Today's forum is being live streamed on the WHRIK's YouTube channel. And now, I would like to invite Bora Shin, President of WHRIK, to deliver the welcoming remarks. Please give a warm welcome to Ms. Bora Shin. Good morning. I am Bora Shin, President of Women's Human Rights Institute of Korea. Thank you for joining us at the 2023 International Forum on Online Sexual Exploitation. Today's forum is a joint effort between our institute and the Canadian Embassy of Korea, and I'd like to thank Ambassador Tamara Mawini and her team at the embassy for working with us in the organization of the forum. The theme of this year's forum is support for child and youth victims of online sexual exploitation. According to the annual report published by Support Center for Child and Youth Victims of Sex Trafficking, which is supported by our institute, 77.8% had been victimized online, with messenger apps being the most frequent channel of abuse, accounting for 49.1%. And children and adolescents are victimized via social network sites, messengers, games, among other online channels, and the age of the victims continue to fall. There is a growing demand for expertise in protection and supporting the recovery of survivors. Our institute has operated the Advocacy Center for Online Sexual Abuse Victims. And since February, we've launched D4 Youth, a cyber counseling channel for underage survivors of sexual exploitation. And we work with partners to make referrals as necessary to help survivors heal. And we also monitor online platforms like Twitter and messenger apps to report any attempts to lure minors into sex trafficking and to inform at-risk children and youth of the available support. We engage in cyber outreach activities. Today, we're joined by speakers from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, ACPOT International, and Stand Up Against Sex Trafficking of Minors, and Taktin Neil. The four organizations are very active in supporting survivors either in Korea or in other countries, and I hope that we can have a very constructive exchange of ideas as well as build an alliance for jointly fighting the online sexual exploitation. I'd like to once again thank the presenters and the moderators, as well as the audience, for joining us today. And WHRIK will continue to work with organizations supporting survivors of gender-based violence and the relevant government ministries, policymakers, researchers, and citizens to develop better ways of supporting victims and promoting their recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your remarks. And next, I'd like to invite Her Excellency Tamar Mohini, Canada's ambassador to the Republic of Korea.
Good morning, bonjour, annyeonghaseyo. My name is Tamara Mohini, Canada's ambassador to the Republic of Korea. And it is an honor to be with you today, virtually, for the 2023 International Forum on Online Sexual Exploitation. First and foremost, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to Shin Bora, President of the Women's Human Rights Institute of Korea, and the dedicated policy development team within the Institute for orchestrating this important event. And your commitment to addressing the profound challenges posed by online sexual exploitation is commendable. I also commend the entire Institute for your unwavering support of victims of gender-based violence and your promotion of women's rights. The gravity of online sexual exploitation, and in particular the exploitation of children, cannot be overstated. It is a deeply troubling global public safety concern that transcends borders. It impacts not only Korea, but Canada and countries worldwide, leaving an indelible mark on past and present generations of women, children, and their families. Regrettably, the incidence of online sexual exploitation and abuse is on the rise in Canada, including that targeted at children. The problem has been exacerbated during the COVID pandemic, with incidents increasing by 25% from 2019 to 2020. In response to this urgent challenge, Canada actively collaborates with international partners. Through forums such as the G7 Child Sexual Exploitation and Abuse Working Group, we exchange vital information on emerging threats and share best practices. The Government of Canada also endorses crucial international agreements to protect women and children from sexual exploitation. These include the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and 2 optional protocols, and the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. In this context, the 2023 International Seminar on Online Sexual Exploitation is a timely event that underscores the importance of international coordination and collaboration. The Embassy of Canada is honored to co-host this event, and I am very pleased that Lindsay Laub, Director of Support Services Operations at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, is here today to discuss the important work undertaken by her organization and division to support the victims of online sexual exploitation and assist locating missing children. Canada's criminal laws are designed to protect children against all forms of sexual exploitation and abuse. But the problem is growing and it transcends borders. It's therefore imperative that all governments around the world take the problem seriously and collaborate to support law enforcement efforts to investigate and track down predators and work more closely with the digital industry. As a society, we must demand change and leadership. Today's event, I believe, is an important step in fostering collective action to better protect women, girls and boys, and their families, and address the urgent issue of online sexual exploitation. I am confident that the insightful discussions today will significantly contribute to achieving these vital objectives. Thank you. Merci. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mohini, for your warm remarks. Now, as the moderator for the panel session, I'm going to invite Ms. Hyun-Suk Lee, who's the president of 부탁드립니다. So, President Lee, can you please introduce yourself and moderate? Thank you. I am Hyun-Suk Lee, and I'm representing Taktin Dail. And today we're going to talk about supporting the child and youth victims of online sexual exploitation. It's a very important issue, and I'm very honored to have been given the role of moderating this important session. And I'd like to thank the WHRIK and also the co-host, the Canadian Embassy. Today, we are going to hear from Lindsay Lobb, who is the Director of Operations Support Services of the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, to hear about efforts being made in Canada for supporting victims. And because of time difference, we are going to entertain questions for Ms. Lindsay Lobb right after her presentation. So while you're listening to her presentation, please jot down your questions and post them on our channel. Now I'm going to pass the microphone over to Ms. Lindsay Lobb. Please introduce yourself and continue with the presentation.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and to our host for the invitation to speak at this conference. I really appreciate it. So as I said, my name is Lindsay Lobb. I am the Director of Operations for our support services team here at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. And today I'm just going to share a little bit about what our organization does and the resources and support that we have available for families and children who have been affected by online sexual violence. So our organization provides a number of different programs and services that are available to Canadians as well as those connecting with us worldwide in some respects. So our organization operates cybertip.ca, Canada's tip line for reporting online child sexual exploitation. And as a part of that, it was recognized particularly as online exploitation was exacerbated during COVID, that there really was a need for additional and immediate intervention supports upon reporting of online child sexual victimization. So our support services team was established in 2020 to manage those types of support services. We also operate a missing children's support service. And then additionally, all the things we learn through our tip line, through our support services and our direct supports to families and children, we weave into prevention and education resources, both for children through our Kids in the Know education curriculum, as well as for adults through our Commit to Kids program, helping organizations keep children safer. So all of these programs and services really work hand in hand to protect as well as to intervene when children need help from us. So as I said, our support services were established a couple of years ago now in recognition that when people were coming in and reporting, they were often in distress or in crisis and really need some additional services to help them to work through the crisis period and allow them to either then stabilize and receive additional support services from community resources, or to get what they need from us and be able to move through that traumatic experience and move on with their lives. So who is connected, how our support team receives requests is through our cyber tip line, as well as through our front-facing website, needhelpnow.ca, which is a great resource for young people who have been victimized online who are looking for support. So those that are connecting with us are usually in distress, having been victims of online sexual violence or harmful online encounters. And this can include themselves who've been victimized, as well as young adults, parents, or school personnel, or anybody else that is connecting directly with kids. So how we provide support to these families is helping to guide them through that process. So this can include reporting the incident directly to a policing service or a child welfare service to ensure the safety of that child, and also to encourage the accountability of those that are harming children online. It can also include assistance in reporting to online platforms. So those that are seeking to harm children, we can provide assistance in reporting their usernames to the platforms where they're harming kids. And we can also help the parents or young people navigate through the school systems. So a big part of what we're doing with these young people and with their parents is sort of the immediate safety planning. So helping parents to ensure that they're putting all the safety protocols in place. And this really is a collaborative effort. So we're working directly with the parent or with the young people from where they're at and not providing a prescriptive plan, but working collaboratively to ensure that we're working with a unique circumstance and a plan that will work for them. We will assist people in navigating systems, including connecting with emotional supports, but also ensuring that they have an idea of how to connect with funding that is available to them in their province or territory, to ensure that they have counseling that is available to them that would be covered through different victim services or victim compensation funds. So in that immediate aftermath, one of the things that we often hear from parents is after the discovery of this online victimization, now what do they do? So we'll work with the parent to help them to figure out what do those next steps look like. And in many cases, this is helping them to talk to their child about what was uncovered online, if parents are the one that have uncovered it, and helping them to interrupt contact online if their child feels that they're, in a relationship with that person, or they feel too scared to stop the contact. It's helping the parent manage through those next steps to disrupt that contact and keep their child safe. So this can include helping the parent to figure out what does a supervision and a safety plan look like for their unique circumstance. And you see here on your screen a booklet called Online Child Sexual Victimization, Picking Up the Pieces. This is a great resource for anyone that is looking to look at what the considerations are around the next steps when online victimization has been uncovered. And this is such an important tool because we know that not everybody is going to come in and report to us. And so we want people to have the information and the resources at their fingertips that's available directly on our website at no cost. The other piece that we're working with survivors around is helping to provide information around the impacts of trauma from online sexual victimization. What we are seeing as an organization is that the impacts of sexual violence online don't differ from sexual violence offline. And so it's really important to understand that there can be a traumatic impact to children, and to help people, to parents and young people, to understand what does trauma look like in our bodies and how does it feel? What I might be exhibiting both physically and emotionally. So these modules that we've created is a 3-part video series that acts as psychoeducation for young people and parents to help them understand trauma, but also to help them build coping and resiliency strategies as they continue to move forward in their healing journey. And then when, we hopefully are getting people to the point where they are ready to hear some safety education and be able to take that in to hopefully reduce the chance of victimization again in the future, we do have a whole slate of safety education resources that can help to build the capacity of children and rebuild their confidence in their safety strategies going forward. So these come in the form of online videos for young people, activity books, online games, and then also resources for parents to help them build their knowledge to help keep their child safe as they move forward in the online space as well as the offline space. And a part of this education resource is our education program called Kids in the Know. So Kids in the Know is a safety curriculum that's taught in the schools by teachers that really works to help reduce the risk of children, of both children going missing as well as online and offline sexual exploitation. What is really great about this program is it's not a crash course in online or personal safety. These are ongoing conversations that give students the opportunity to ask questions, practice, and to really engage in meaningful conversation around their safety in a safe space with their teachers. And so these curriculum is used all across Canada, in many school divisions and school boards, and in fact in many other jurisdictions as well outside of Canada. And it's a great way to really introduce the ongoing safety conversation for young people. So with that, it's a limited time. I certainly could share much more information, but I would open it up to questions from the team.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lindsay Lobb, for this very informative presentation. I think your activities are very inspirational. There are two questions that were posted online. This is the first question. Were there cases where the victim was really healed and supported well through your center? If you have a very good example of healing.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't really get into any statistics, but our organization receives between 3,000 and 4,000 requests for support services per year from young people and their families. And I could think of numerous examples where young people have been truly supported and helped. One that I will share specifically is a young person who is a 16-year-old female who was victimized online, had images of her shared in a number of different places on the internet. And this young person, she was really, really struggling, not only with being able to tell a safe adult in her life, but in not being able to constantly search for her own material. And so through the work of our organization and our wraparound services. So when people are coming into our organization, they're not just getting support from me and my team on the support services side. We're also working collaboratively with our tip line, with Project Arachnid to reduce the distribution of sexual abuse images online, as well as our legal team and our education team. We all work collaboratively. So this young person, we've been working with her for over a year now. And most recently, she came into us and was able to tell us that she hadn't searched for her own images in nearly a month. And she said specifically that she felt that was thanks to the work of Project Arachnid, knowing that Arachnid was out there searching for her images for her, that she could take that burden off of herself. This young person throughout the last year, she has also gained the confidence to talk to a parent and to get some support from a therapist, because she was intersecting with our team to help address the worries and the concerns that she had and help to move her and bring her to a place where she felt confident to talk to a safe adult. This young person shared with us just this week that she truly felt that she had come through the other side and was really excited to be graduating high school and to be able to move on to further her studies.
Thank you very much. That's a really great case. So after a year of hard work, she overcame her anxiety and was able to go back to like semblance of normal life. So is there an online counseling system for victims in Canada?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So there are our organization, while we are not therapists or counselors, but we do provide all of our services across the whole country via phone and email. So all of our support services are provided virtually. Each province would, and in fact, many cities would actually have their own different counseling services available, and certainly some are available virtually, but not all. So some therapy is still certainly provided in person, but there are counseling options available virtually for survivors, and that's in fact something that our team will help people to navigate through. Is how do you find appropriate counseling from a therapist that really does understand the nature of online sexual victimization. So we'll work with families to ensure that they're getting connected to somebody that has that experience and has that knowledge base. And then also helping them, like I was saying in the presentation, to connect with funding so that, because we understand the financial burden of online child sexual, or sorry, of therapy for online child sexual victimization can be quite high for families. So we want to ensure that they are getting connected to something that is going to be covered or that is going to be reasonably priced for the family to be on.
Thank you very much. There's another question. At your center, there are a lot of requests for support. So are you being funded by the government or are there private funding?
Yeah, that's a great question. So both. Our organization certainly does receive funding from the Government of Canada through public safety, particularly for our operation of our cybertip.ca program. We have other funding agreements provincially, as we are the designated reporting agency for a number of provinces related to online child sexual victimization. And then we do receive private sector funding as well as grant and foundation funding as well.
Thank you very much.
There is a time difference between Korea and Canada, so I understand that this is not the most convenient time for you to participate, but nevertheless, you're here with us, so thank you very much once again. So then let us move on to the next speaker.
So the next topic is on the ECPAT's victim support policy and advocacy work. And the presenter is Ms. Amy Crocker, Head of Child Protection and Technology at ECPAT International. And Taktin Nail is a member of ECPAT. So we're very much looking forward to the presentation. And this presentation will be a video presentation.
My name is Amy Crocker, and I'm the Head of Child Protection and Technology at ECPAT International. And I'm here today to talk to you about prevention, response, and victim support. My apologies for not being with you in person, but we are very honoured to be part of this important event today. I want to focus a little bit on the importance of a holistic approach to supporting child victims and survivors of online child sexual exploitation and abuse. My role at ECPAT is to understand and try and support responses to the role of technology in facilitating the sexual exploitation of children. But of course, we carry out this work in the context of many different manifestations of sexual exploitation and abuse around the world, and this is a key point to begin with today. The main objective of this presentation is to offer some insights from the ECPAT network and from ECPAT International into challenges and responses or solutions to support systems for child victims of online sexual abuse and exploitation. So first, who are we? ECPAT International is a global network of civil society organizations with one common mission: to end the sexual exploitation of children. And our members across the world in 104 countries do this in many different ways, and they support victims who are victims of sexual exploitation in different settings, whether it's trafficking in the context of travel and tourism, or indeed in the online environment. And some of the ways that we as ECPAT International work is we place great emphasis on research and data collection to build the evidence base for advocacy. We bring people together, we convene dialogue, we convene events to understand the problem, the challenges, and try and seek common solutions. And we develop advocacy and campaigns for change, whether that's speaking with policymakers or speaking with providers of online services. Just a snapshot of some of our work in the broader Asia region. We've been for a number of years supporting the ASEAN with their regional plan of action on ending online child sexual exploitation. We also conduct regional advocacy with a number of partners across the region to engage with the ICT sector and push for better policies, stronger policies, and stronger safeguards for children online. And we're also starting to work in the world of online gaming and addressing issues such as gender exploitation, but also help seeking. And to give you an idea of some of our members in the Asia region, we have members across the region, including here in South Korea. Takti Nael is the national member of ECPAT and is doing fantastic work in relation to this. And I know that our moderator today is from Taktin. Some of the many areas that our members in the region work on just demonstrate the ways that ECPAT and its network are supporting victims and survivors of sexual exploitation and abuse, and how they are seeking to drive change and make a better online environment for children. So some of them in Cambodia, Thailand, the Philippines, Taiwan operate hotlines for illegal content. They might run helplines for children and families and others to report, share concerns, seek help. They might offer legal advocacy and support, which is crucial for victims in seeking justice and accessing the justice system and navigating that system. They offer drop-in and residential care facilities for victims. They offer psychosocial support, and they engage in education and awareness and advocacy and campaigns for change. First, I want to give a real snapshot of some of the evolving challenges of online child sexual exploitation and abuse, which impact upon our ability and our understanding of victimization in the online world. We're certainly seeing an increase in the scale and the volume of child sexual abuse material being shared online, also of self-generated sexual content, as it is sometimes referred to, which in many cases and increasingly is coerced by someone else, or even if it's produced with consent, will be shared without consent on the internet, and this is hugely problematic for victims. And we've seen increases in grooming, the solicitation of children online for sexual purposes. We see an increase also in harmful sexual behavior by children and youth, which is a complex social phenomenon to deal with and produces new challenges when we think about victim and perpetrator support. Of course, underlying all of the challenges we face are complex social dynamics and the social drivers of violence in society that translate into violence online need to be addressed if we are to, come to a better place in terms of helping victims. We're seeing new methods of exploitation online. We've seen the phenomenon of live streaming of abuse for many years, but we're also seeing increases in the use of multiple platforms and cross-platform abuse to target and isolate victims. We see a resurgence of, for example, financially motivated sexual exploitation, and this is something that is being looked at very closely right now. And of course, technology itself plays a huge role in our ability to understand the problem, but also it poses huge challenges when we try to support victims and actually help them seek justice. So here we're talking about the increase in adoption of end-to-end encrypted services, anonymized services, and, big in the media today, the use of generative AI, for example, to produce child sexual abuse material. And, we're looking now to evolutions in the metaverse, in virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, etc. And there are huge risks and implications in terms of the impact of these kind of harms that will be perpetrated in these environments on victims. We're also, which is fantastic, seeing an evolving response. I think we're in an era that is transitioning from self-regulation to regulation. We are seeing a swathe of regulations around the world which are producing obligations on online service providers to carry out certain activities. And we are seeing enhanced action, whether voluntary or by law, to detect, report and remove child sexual abuse from the online environment. We're also seeing a lot more cross-border and cross-sector collaboration, overcoming challenges of accessing data, overcoming mistrust between sectors, and actually working towards a common goal. And crucially, for this presentation and for this audience today, we're seeing more and more consultation of survivors and organisations around the world, including our partners at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, who are really championing the voice of victims and survivors and helping them play a key role in making change in their countries and globally. And we're also seeing, which is also crucial, an increased focus on the prevention and support for perpetrators, whether they be adults or young people themselves. So some of the challenges, general challenges around victim support. I think one of the fundamental challenges with victimization, and perhaps this can be very acute in the online world, is that victims are afraid or ashamed to talk. They often don't recognize what's happened to them as a crime, or particularly in the case of boys, they may not recognize this as an offense. They're constrained by gender norms around masculinity, and they may not, even if they do disclose, find services for them. And I think in general in society, and many frontline professionals do not understand the impact of online child sexual exploitation and abuse. They don't see it as harmful as abuse that occurs in the real world. But of course, online and offline abuse are intricately connected, and there is very little differences in terms of impact. One impact, however, that is acutely felt by victims of online exploitation and abuse is the psychological trauma and impact of them knowing that their images or their videos are being circulated online and consumed online time and time again. And this points to the huge importance of detecting and removing content from the online world. Some of the general solutions we find, our members have found, is it's crucial to build a safe environment and to build trust with victims so that they will access services. It's crucial to have specially trained counsellors, to educate frontline professionals such as those in the healthcare sector, the education sector, law enforcement, to understand the signs and also to understand the impact that these crimes can have on victims. It's hugely important to sensitize the public about the risks and the harm in the online environment. Conducting research is crucial, and addressing harmful terminology that may inadvertently blame victims for what has happened to them in the online space. And ECPAT's experience has led it to understand that survivor conversations need to be participant-centered, conducted and trained by local professionals, and very much solution-focused so that we can be very clear about the support that we can give to victims. To offer a case study, and I will point you later to a case study also conducted by Takti Nael with ECPAT International in South Korea. But I'm going to draw now upon a lesson from the UK. And this was a case study conducted as part of ECPAT's Global Boys Initiative. And it's a very short snapshot of the case study, but I think it provides some interesting insights and reflections. So First Step Leicester was founded in 1997 to support male survivors over the age of 13 of sexual abuse and rape, and those who are supporting them in their community or family. And First Step Leicester offers specialized counseling and emotional support that is also tailored for the younger victims and survivors, so those aged 13 to 18. Crucially, they have a team of specialized full-time staff who are trained to deal with the specific dynamics of these victims. And they also make use of different technologies such as video conference technology, Zoom, for example, to expand their reach and create safe spaces for victims. But some of the challenges they found when first working with male victims in communities is that it's already very hard to reach boys and men who have suffered abuse, and these are for complex reasons of complex social norms around gender and also masculinities. And when they did, they found in a very multicultural community that the service was based in, they found that they were only receiving victims and survivors coming forward from one ethnic group. And they realized they needed to expand that outreach to ensure that all communities were being served and that men and boys in those communities would come out and seek help. And so some of the ways they overcame the challenge or addressed some of the challenges that they saw were to develop a website that was very accessible and would allow men and boys to review content on their own in the safety of their own homes. There was also the use of a special section and child-friendly language for younger audiences of boys aged 13 plus. Often the first contact was via telephone to sort of allow the victim to take that first step, but still feel safe, since fear and shame of coming forward are very, very common among all victims and particularly around boys. But of course, then victims are encouraged to visit the centre in person. And the centre also has clear protocols around confidentiality. For example, when they send a message confirmation for an appointment, they use very general language, so it's not linked to the centre or to the services they provide. Counsellors use language that does not remind victims of their abuse, and they use for victims and survivors who struggle to speak about their abuse, or perhaps they're in a very early stage of recognizing their abuse. They use systems such as having tick boxes where the victim and survivor can indicate what has happened to them, what is happening to them. And this allows them to share their experiences without having to speak out loud. And I think crucially, the centre found that tailoring their support to each victim and making sure there was a match between a visitor to the centre and a trained counsellor was also really crucial. And here, as mentioned earlier, I want to point out the case study that was also carried out in South Korea with Sakti Nael. And I'm sure the colleagues here will be referring this to you. So moving on, I think what's crucial in all of this, in reflecting on ways to support victims and creating a victim support system or ecosystem in a country, is to take a very holistic response. There is no one size fits all. So a model developed in one country will very rarely translate perfectly into another country. But there's so much learning already out there, a lot of experience about what works, what doesn't work. And there is existing guidance and good practice to learn from. I think we can say that a holistic response to victim support is one where all sectors play a role. So whether it's online service providers engaging in prevention and support and providing reporting mechanisms, or it is law enforcement first responders, or it's healthcare workers, or even specialised counsellors in centres for support. An approach must be victim-centred, evidence-informed, and trauma-informed, and it must be inclusive. It must think about prevention, response, and victim support. And here are just some examples of some of the frameworks to support action. You may be aware of the Model National Response developed by the We Protect Global Alliance, and they've recently carried out a study of the implementation of the Model National Response to learn about the challenges faced by countries. So this is a resource that you may wish to refer to. And there are a number of other resources, such as the guidelines for policymakers on child online protection, advice around child advocacy centres, the Barnahus in Europe model, or centres in Canada and USA. And there are toolkits for developing policy around child online safety at national level. There's advice from countries from Australia on national regulatory guidance and on materials that support victims and support families of who have experienced or had family members who have experienced online harm. And crucially, there's been an increased platform for survivor councils, survivor networks around the world. We can cite the Philippines, Germany, Canada, United States, and survivors play a crucial role in informing policy, helping people to understand their lived experience, and helping to advocate for stronger, more assertive action to to respond to online child sexual exploitation and abuse. And I'd like to perhaps move towards the end by talking about the importance of data and the importance of dialogue. Clearly, international data can help inform a response in any country or any region or globally to inform action. And I can cite some examples from ECPAT's research. We've been involved in a multi-country study called Disrupting Harm. We've engaged in studies in multiple countries on children's experiences of accessing the justice system. National data to inform national action is also fundamental. I pointed earlier towards our Global Boys Initiative, where we've done national case studies and national reports on the care available and the support available for boy victims of abuse and sexual abuse and violence. It's also crucial to consult with victims and survivors, and I'll give a few examples of that in a moment. It's crucial to consult with children about their digital lives and help them be part of the solution in driving change in the online world. And also, it's crucial to have dialogue about the underlying social issues that are driving violence. So just example of some of our initiatives where we have engaged with survivors or are providing a platform for survivors and advocating for survivor rights and victims themselves. So our Global Boys Initiative, the Disrupting Harm project that we carried out with Interpol and UNICEF Office of Research Innocenti, and our work around understanding survivors' perspectives, and our work in the European Union under Project Beacon to advocate for strong, robust legislation that ensures a protection for children in the online environment. So just to, I can say many things, but I think what really matters is what survivors are saying, what victims say, and what they tell us, and we can take a huge amount of learning from this. So here you have a snapshot of from conversations with survivors around the world, from Latin America, from Europe, from Asia, who talk about the challenges of talking about sex and sexuality. They talk about the fact as boys that they didn't find support services existing in their country. They talk about the fact that they're not aware that things happening to them are crimes. And they talk about the shame of telling people and telling the police, who won't understand and will often blame them for the situation that they found themselves in. So the Disrupting Harm project, as I mentioned earlier, was a multi-country study in Africa and Southeast Asia on the prevalence and manifestation of online child sexual abuse and exploitation. And as part of that, ECPAT conducted some conversations with young survivors. As I mentioned, conversations that were participant-centered, conducted by trained professionals, and we're really focused on solutions and engaging young people and survivors on solutions they would like to see. And the top 4 things or comments that the young people said is that they don't want to be judged when they make a mistake. They want help when things go wrong. They want adults, trusted adults, to be available to talk to them about their digital lives and about the online world. And they want help understanding themselves, and that may be in relation to identity, relationships, sexuality, for example. So to conclude, I think, as I mentioned, there's no one size fits all for the way that we support victims of online sexual exploitation and abuse. But I think there are some key points that we can take home. One is we must learn from the experiences of victims and survivors. And that means victims and survivors of all genders and identities, victims and survivors with disabilities, victims and survivors of different ages. We need to build multi-sectoral support systems that are child-friendly, are trauma-informed, and take a very broad view of the challenge and understand that what happens in the online world has real world impact and often has an impact that goes on way beyond the offence of abuse or exploitation itself, because of the nature of the online environment, where images and videos can be circulating for a long period of time, if not forever, and can be repeatedly consumed and shared. It's crucial to work with the media to inform ethical reporting and encourage ethical reporting so that they are using appropriate terminology for victims and also for perpetrators. And this helps to reduce the use of language that might be victim blaming, whether intentionally or inadvertently. We need to improve efforts to address the drivers of sexual abuse and exploitation, and clearly that focus on prevention is absolutely fundamental. And, as I've mentioned several times, it's crucial to learn from the experiences of others, other countries, other organizations, because the challenges are large, but there is already a huge amount of expertise from around the world. And I think many of the challenges that one country may face will have been experienced in another country, and this international collaboration is really crucial if we are to make global changes to this global problem. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Due to time zone difference, she joined us by having her video sent. And I know there are participants online from WHRIK International who are listening in. I hope that we can also get their participation in the Q&A session that will come after all the presentations are delivered. Now, the next speaker is Churi Kwon, Executive Director of Stand Up Against Sex Trafficking of Minors, and she's going to cover online exploitation and grooming in Korea. Good morning. I am Executive Director of Stand Up Against Sex Trafficking of Minors. Can you see my slides? So today, I'm going to talk about the current state of online exploitation and grooming in Korea. This was the topic given to me. So without further ado, I'd like to begin my presentation. So, Stand Up Against Sex Trafficking of Minors was established in order to provide support to teenage girl victims of online sexual exploitation. We are a nonprofit organization, and from the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family and from Seoul City government, we have been commissioned to run counseling centers and integrated victim support center. We're talking about child and youth victims, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Act on the Protection of Children and Youth Against Sex Offenses, which is the Korean law protecting child victims of sexual violence. So there was some amendment of this very act. And I'd like to talk about how the legislation was amended to protect minors in a more comprehensive way. As I mentioned, that there was an amendment in actually, we began as a study group in 2013 to amend this Act on the Protection of Children and Youth. And we also organized press conferences and various seminars, and we participated in research projects commissioned by National Human Rights Commission and National Assembly. So as a result of 8 years of efforts, finally, we were able to see the amendment of the Protection of Children and Youth Act in 2020. So the requirement to validate whether the child is indeed a victim or not before protection is provided was removed subsequent to this amendment. And we are running centers for child and youth victims of sex trafficking, 17 of them across Korea. And we are also we've also worked towards getting other legal amendments made to penalize grooming as a crime and to allow undercover investigation in sex trafficking cases. Now, oftentimes when children sign up to messenger apps, oftentimes they would receive solicitous messages from adults seeking to exploit them sexually. And then after some photos are exchanged, then the adult would intimidate the child into taking even more obscene images and threaten to share them online. And so, for example, we would see adults trying to reach a child's TikTok account, Instagram account, Twitter accounts, and Facebook accounts. And I know you're all familiar with these platforms. And oftentimes the personal accounts on these platforms would be the target of predators. And networking app is also another problem. And also there are live streaming that's done on YouTube and other platforms. And so X and Twitter. So there are various apps where children are engaged in conversations, and we are present in those platforms so that children who wish to reach out to us anonymously and share their concerns, we are able to support them. Oftentimes, children are very worried about sharing and disclosing their experience online. And I'm sure you've utilized these second-hand goods trading apps. Sometimes even through such apps, sexual exploitation of children occur. And also on metaverse apps. And often there are accounts that are used pseudonymously for deviant behaviors by perpetrators, and there are a lot of victimization taking place using such pseudonym accounts. So I have mentioned before several platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and secondhand goods trading apps. And you also see the X account. And there was one child victim who actually committed suicide after experiencing sexual exploitation. And hashtag had words like depression. And oftentimes these children post things that indicate their level of depression. And in this account, this child had indicated that she is a girl, and also there is age. And she also indicates that she is suffering from depression. So why is this child sharing this information on her account? She's trying to reach out to people, letting them know what kind of a person she is, and she's expressing her need to communicate and connect with others. But the people who actually reach out to girls like her often have, very harmful intentions. And we are supporting victims, so we reach out to these children with good intentions to help them. But then there are perpetrators who reach out to these accounts with very, harmful intentions. So on the left side, you see the TikTok account image. You can see that right now we've overcome the pandemic, and so everything is back to normal. But back then, there were a lot of online activities and online class activity. And so she posted something on TikTok account, and there are chat messages that say, what would you like to as compensation for some actions? And he sent a direct message to the girl and saying, I'm going to Korea, and I would like to pay you for certain services. So do you think this was a very special account? No, it's just a normal account that is owned by just seemingly normal people. But they're sending direct messages which cannot be seen by others. It can only be read by the child who owns that account. And he's actually offering $500. So the child might become curious, thinking, how can I earn $500 doing what? So she might be more open to communicating with the person. And this is another app that you see here. Basically, this post was saying that I'm going to sell new underwear. And the person sent a message to this woman saying, put it on, take a photo of yourself in it, and then send it to me, and then I will pay you. So there's another screen image here, and that's from a game. And most of children are playing these games, and if you log on to the game, some people would post messages like, who can show me your breast? And this is just online and open to all the players of the game. And so these are people who are perpetrators trying to solicit sexual, responses from children. And now I'd like to talk about these pseudonym accounts where there are a lot of deviant behaviors that is exposed. So oftentimes these accounts are used by children or youth to alleviate stress, and they engage in very diverse activities for fun to relieve stress. And oftentimes there are cases where children expose some parts of their body without their face exposed. And the hashtag says, I want allowance, easy money, and this other person responded to our account saying, hey, I'd like to meet you offline or maybe have phone conversation. And then so there is communication. Actually, we have several children who come to us for sexual exploitation that they have experienced while communicating through such accounts. And oftentimes, the children are engaged in such delinquent behavior online. So why are they doing this? Well, most of the children who have these followers, but they actually have many people who are sending direct messages and praising the child for the behavior exposed on the account, and asks the child to send other images and even offer money in return, and sometimes tries to solicit the child into entering into a relationship. But the child would take this as an expression of attention that she or he was seeking. And so by entering into this type of a relationship, thinking that this is healthy attention, they may be intimidated into creating, very obscene images and contents, which can then be exploited and shared online. So can I move on to the next slide? So this is another case. We have similar cases. And so I told you how children would often expose their bodily parts in their, delinquent action accounts. And there are direct messages sent to children saying, I know you have been involved in these types of explicit behavior, which is not right for your age, and I am going to maybe report you to the authorities. And so children being innocent would then say, what can I do to not get punished? And because these people want to exploit the children, they are trying to intimidate the child by saying, you have committed a crime by exposing yourself online. And also, they would also try to, copy texts from different legal papers and make it seem like very official documents and intimidate the child using such fake documents. And the children are afraid because they fear that their parents will find out what they have done. And I mentioned before that law was amended to remove the requirement to ascertain whether the child was indeed a victim before providing support. But by removing this requirement, now all children can access support. And we can prevent the children from being burdened with the burden of proving that they actually are a victim. And you can see there the person is now demanding the child to take her clothes off and say sorry in the video and send it to me if you want to not get prosecuted. And so this person has put up a police logo there to make it seem like this is an official police account. And then the child has sent a video fully clothed. And this person is saying, oh, but you have clothes on. I told you to take the image in nude to prove that you're really sorry for what you have done. And I can't even see your face, is what this adult perpetrator is saying to the child. So this was a real case that was reported to us. This person, children, do not know what's going to happen. And so this actually exacerbates their fear. And oftentimes, the victims do not understand what they might get into and how things will develop afterwards. So we need to provide more information.
So this is actually from last year. So for about 15 days, along with the KBS, the National Broadcasting Network, we had an intensive period where we monitored activities on metaverse platforms. So it was not easy for me to use a real case, but I was looking at some potential online grooming examples. So here, adult A, he called himself that he's 30 years old, and also there were 6 counselors from our center. And actually, this person, the 30-year-old adult male, approached 4 of our 6 counselors who acted like they are young children online. So as you can see here, our counselors wasn't actually active on online. They were just logged in. They were just passive, just logged in. They posed as like underage, like adolescent. And this is if you look at the table here, so starting May 30, so to our one of the counselor who posed as a 16-year-old character, this adult male approached this character and commenting on how cool your character is. And the next day, he opened up a secret chat room and started talking something sexual. And then a few days later, June 3rd, he began talking about everyday life. And also in the weekend, June 5th, this person invited a 16-year-old character into a secret chatting room because this is a Geppetto metaverse platform. He's asking our 16-year-old character to move, for example, lie down and and relax. And adult A tried to put himself upon this character and try to suck the chest of the 16-year-old character, saying that this is possible if we are both adults. Are you interested in this kind of activity? Have you ever seen a video of similar nature? Have you ever touched male genitalia, or do you like to touch male genitalia? So 16-year-old character, if a real 16-year-old person received this kind of chat messages, oftentimes their curiosity is piqued and they actually think that they want to do this. So next day, this person says hi via Geppetto message and now invites 16-year-old character to a KakaoTalk, another messenger app in open chat. So giving him his ID, and also next day, on the same metaverse platform, the 16-year-old character realized that received a dress, the metaverse dress item as a gift from this person. And then next day, this 30-year-old adult male is teaching the 16-year-old character how to masturbate on their own. And next day, then 16-year-old characters realized that received more gift, more bikini swimsuit. And then this 30-year-old adult A is again gives a very detailed instructions about how to do masturbation. So this is an example that we were able to capture. So I talked about the gift was given, but this function is now deleted on this platform as of last year. So prior, under this function, the recipient of the gift was not able to refuse the gift. So you're just unilaterally on the receiving end of the gift. So once you receive the gift, you feel guilty about not responding to the sender of the gift. This is what we were able to find when we actually talked with the children. So the children would say I didn't know what to say, how to respond. Particularly when they send me a gift, I didn't know how else to respond. And also, so basically, you can see some characteristics here. So secret chatting room. So they are trying to build a secret relationship with the children and then sending them gift. So this is another example. So this is a real example. So for the same person, so within the Geppetto platform, we are also running a counseling center. So via our counseling center on Geppetto, we actually had a case where another adolescent, real adolescent this time, was approached by the same 30-year-old male adult A. So this adult male was approaching this adolescent and asking them to enter a relationship with them, but that we were able to see that adult A was using the same approach to approach these high school students actually. So this adolescent had a good sense to turn him down and then blocked him and then left the chat room with him. So we asked this high school student, what ticked you off, that something is wrong with this guy? Because this guy is an adult. That was the student's answer, the adolescent's answer. Because this guy is an adult, it's like talking to me in a weird way. So I felt weirded out, so I turned him off. So that was a good case. But within the platform, there are very limited options as to what we can do. The only thing we can do is notice and take down. So basically, we let the users, the potential victims, to just block this weird user. There's not many other things that we can do. For internal reporting as well, on this platform, there's no clear guideline as to how the reported cases are going to be processed. And next, so just as you were able to see some examples, what can we learn? This is not a safe environment for children, but this is a safe environment for sexual predators. So if you look at the chat message, imagine the chat messages that children can receive here. Imagine that the 16-year-old character was actually real 16-year-old person. So actually, in online, there is an online grooming penalty act now. So if somebody sends an instructions about doing some sexual activities, for example, exposing oneself or doing a masturbation, now that is punishable. That is a crime. But when this kind of situation happens, but oftentimes, not just the verbal instructions, the action should actually take place in order for the law enforcement agency to come in and penalize this person. So to give you a summary, because this adult A just gave a verbal instructions online only, we cannot punish this person criminally. So it is very difficult to actually penalize them criminally. And also we are not an investigative organization. So the rationale for the Online Grooming Penalty Act is actually to collect evidence prior to the crime actually happens. So it's more about data gathering purposes. So it's not actually effective in terms of actually preventing such cases online and penalizing such behaviors online. And also, there's another case I want to talk about here. So in this case, we actually filed for an official complaint to the law enforcement agency because this case was quite severe. But again, because of the law, the wording that I talked about earlier, that unless these online instructions actually lead to actual actions offline, it's very not easy to penalize the perpetrator. But in this case, because the case was severe, we filed for online official complaint. And this is another case. So and also, adolescents who are showing sexually explicit contents of themselves, they can be actually penalized for sexual trafficking advertisement. Can you understand this? So now this is now changed. So for example, As you can see on the media report on the left-hand side, the adolescent, the teenagers on chatting app turns out to be investigator. So now their undercover investigation is now allowed for sexual exploitation for underage people. So. And also on the right-hand side, you have a capture of a commentary about this new law. So just by simply allowing undercover investigation online, it can discourage sexual predators. So that is why we actually sent out this commentary that we welcome the permission of the undercover investigation. But if you can see what is written here, so this is some of the support that we provided to children, but also there was a ruling that if a person, for example, there was an adult who posted on Twitter that if you show part of you, then I will give you like 1 million won. So that is basically sex trafficking. So if the same, and also depending on who posts this content and who responds to this content, either this content can be actually a sex trafficking advertisement. So we also ran a channel about online investigations about sexual exploitation and undercover investigation. Undercover investigation once was done not targeting sexual predators, adult predators, but actually targeting adolescents. Sorry, I was not showing the slide that I was talking about. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. And so that case, the undercover investigation targeted not adult predators, but adolescents who were showing sexually explicit content. So it didn't make sense to us. So we raised issues about that. We raised our concerns about that. So this is actually the details of this is in our website.
So this was to show that what a situation that adults, teenagers can face. And so in 2022, a new amendment was introduced, and if the deposit, there's a deposit that can be posted despite the opposition from the child victim. And so I think you should search for the report on this. And KBS reported that they had legal sentencing for about 1,000 cases that were filed with the court, and we found that there were 288 out of 519 sex offense-related cases where a deposit was posted, and having the deposit posted allowed for the perpetrator to actually get less heavy sentence. And so oftentimes these offenders, they don't reach out to really settle with the victims, and they just post a deposit. And so they are not willing to apologize and accept their responsibility, but they're simply posting deposit in order to lower their punishment. So I think this system is not in favor of victims who needs further protection. So now this is the process of how sexual exploitation of children and youth take place. Again, there's online grooming initially, and then they ask for photographs, and then there is intimidation saying that the photo will be shared, and then coerces the child to produce more obscene images, and then that video will oftentimes be sold online. And using such video, they will intimidate the child into engaging in sex trafficking. So we need to be able to support victims at all different stages in this process. But we often see that the investigations are not taking place in an integrated manner because there is cybercrime investigation unit on the one hand, and then there's another investigative unit focusing on child and youth victimization cases. But I think they actually need to work together in order to have an integrated investigation on the online sexual exploitation of children and youth. And I recently heard from a lawyer that sometimes if they have submitted a legal complaint, the different investigative units would request that the case actually be separated into bits which were their mandate, which is, I think, just it doesn't make sense when the victim is this one person who's suffering from multiple different offenses. So now I would like to talk about what sort of support should be available to the victims. I think it's very important to first identify the child victims, and it's very difficult to find and reach the victims because of the nature of the offense, the victims are often wary of seeking help and disclosing their victimization. So we're trying to reach out to at-risk children through various online platforms and chat apps to allow more information to reach those children about the kind of support that they can get. And as I mentioned before, there are anonymous chat apps where we can reach out to children who wish to remain anonymous when they disclose their cases. So we're using that, but sometimes the children often search for information on Naver platform, and there are often incorrect information available. So we feel that it is absolutely necessary to provide accurate information in a timely manner. So these types of information is written on the left side, very text heavy, but I think we really need to provide a lot of information that's compact, but combined with a lot of interesting images to make it more child-friendly. And so I think you can refer to our information available on our website. And for children who reach out to centers like ours, we try to make referrals so that they can seek legal support and also psychological and emotional support. And we have a caseworker, and there are lawyers to whom we can refer the children to. And also, if they're being protected at a shelter, the counselor would come to the shelter to talk to the child. And the parents are oftentimes at a loss as to how to deal with these victimization cases. And sometimes the parents themselves do not serve well as a person to talk to for child victims. So we are supporting parents to help them become better communicators with their children. And also, we provide legal assistance so that the child victims can take legal proceedings and even through the appealing of cases that were ruled not in their favor. And we also provide referral services so that they can seek medical and psychological support. And we feel that at times at least 2 years of support needs to be consistently delivered in order for the children to really heal and recover. And so when you identify children who have been victims of online sexual abuse, please refer that child to the organizations that have the necessary expertise so that they can get real help. And also, you can refer to these references to get more detailed information on the situation that I have presented today. And the environment is quite risky for children nowadays, and I hope we can all make it a safer place. Thank you very much, Ms. Judy Kwon. We will now move on to the Q&A session. So we will take a few moments to first address questions that were received in advance for Ms. Amy Crocker. We received answers from Amy Crocker in advance because she was not able to join online. So this is the first question. The first question is on the European legal landscape for punishing perpetrators of online sexual exploitation. And Amy Crocker responded that in the EU, there is a directive on combating the sexual abuse and sexual exploitation of children and child pornography, which sets forth rules and minimum sentences, and each country is encouraged to transpose the terms of the directive into their local legislation. And the second question was about the age classification of children versus adolescents or youth in the law. And Amy Crocker responded that in EU countries, all individuals under the age of 18 are defined as children. The third question is what can be done to increase the rate of arrest and punishment of perpetrators? She responded that to increase the protection of children from sexual exploitation and abuse, it is crucial to have trained teams, to have access to technology that enables an efficient management of data and strong international cooperation. And she also said that alongside arrest and prosecution, it is crucial that governments invest in resources to prevent perpetration in the first place. And she recommended as a useful reference the Model National Response Framework, the details of which she will share with WHRIK.
And the fourth question is about what kind of measures are done to classify the victims. And it is the purview of the law enforcement agencies to investigate the perpetrators, but they collect some data for the law enforcement agencies. That is one of the functions for their hotline and also support systems, and also working with the Europol and Interpol as well for victim identification. By victim identification, you exchange the data about the victim support and digital content to locate the victim, and also finally to identify the victim. Usually once you identify the victim, you can also identify the perpetrator as well. The next question was about what kind of measures are done to prevent online sexual exploitation. WHRIK International is the member network, so Takji Nail or other presenters can also answer this question, but ECPAT as well, since that prevention is really essential. and targeting technology can be used for preventive purposes. And also, we need to provide more education and training for the caregivers and parents as well, and also to improve their awareness of these issues. And also, of course, educate the frontline professionals as well, and also children as themselves as well. And I want to talk about the civil support as well. So this is something that needs to be done collaboratively by the civil society, the government, and the companies, corporates as well. When you see a problem, we can work together. For example, when we support the victim, for example, if there's a new type of sexual exploitation going on in the platform, then we need to contact the platform provider immediately, let them know what is happening on their platform, and then work with them to prevent them to take it out of their platform. Or we can develop technological measures to prevent such cases.
So the next question is for Ms. Judy Kwon from Stand Up Against Sex Trafficking of Minors. There are two questions. The first one is this. When there is a case where the victim suffered multiple offenses of photo sharing online, intimidation, grooming, and stalking, how are the perpetrators punished under the current legislation when there are multiple offenses targeting a victim? Well, I have previously mentioned some case examples actually involved multiple offenses. And we have legislations that are dealing with these crimes. So most of the legislations cover the sharing of photos or being in possession of exploitative material targeting children, and also sex trafficking and sexual molestation. These are the crimes that which are often punished. And the case I shared with you previously was a 16-year-old. But if the victim is under 16 years old, then that would constitute a statutory rape case. And so in such cases, the Act on the Protection of Children and youth victims against sexual offenses will be the law to go to.
And second question, since we are here today with the victim support organization as well, so I guess this question comes from the heart, wishing the victims can go back to normal life as soon as possible. So any such recovery case that you can share? Yes, this is not an easy question. Recovery. So what is your definition of recovery? So once you break the relationship with the perpetrator, that might be the starting point of recovery. Once you build back your relationship with your family members, that might be recovery point. The fact that the moment you can go back to school, that might be the starting point of recovery. So what is recovery? So the support, adults who provide support to victims, we cannot define the recovery. The recovery is defined by the individual victims and adolescents. But what I want to say here is that as we work with many victims and also receive a lot of report of these kind of cases, many cases, these children, they're reluctant to report of what they experienced because they're worried about what their family's reaction might be. And if they do not report on the perpetrator, then as this child grows up, the child will continue with the memory that the child didn't get any help from the family members, that the families were not aware and were not helping them out. So that can be more traumatic as well. So we encourage actually the victims to move forward and report. And also if it's very difficult to move on, we encourage counseling as well, along with family members as well. Oftentimes, the therapy, psychotherapy, helps to speed up the recovery, not just the victims, but also the victims' families as well. And psychotherapy can help them to understand each other, the victim and the family members. So that's also, but that takes time, as I mentioned during my presentation. So it takes usually at least a year or two until the victim and the family members can feel safe again. Oftentimes, they stop taking the psychotherapy sessions. Sometimes we don't know why, but it's very important to keep monitoring, and also important to keep supporting them, even if it takes time. So I'm not saying that it is impossible to fully recover. It just takes time and effort. So we also need to be there throughout the process as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There are no further questions that were received. And I think you may want to add some more things because we gave you only limited time. Well, I actually covered a lot of things very quickly, but I think you can later check the conference presentation pack that will be distributed later on. Well, I talked about the legal amendment and toward which we really worked for at least 8 years. And there were many other organizations who worked together with us to reach that amendment. And next week, the amendment would have become 3 years old. And still, there are so many people who are unaware of the legislative amendment that took place. So we, as victim support organizations, we are aware of these amendments, but we really think it's necessary for potential victims and their families to be aware of these amendments. And even the investigative agency, sometimes the officers are not fully aware of the details and the implications of the amendment. So they're often taking a very different or the more conventional and the more conservative approach to investigation that was the common practice before the amendment. So I think we really need to share the right information to the victims and the people who are serving children in the front lines. Thank you very much. It took a long time to achieve that amendment, and it was very hard to get the amendment, but finally that amendment was passed thanks to the infamous nth room telegram case. So there were many victims who were sacrificed, and their experiences were the foundation on which these amendments were made. But oftentimes the perpetrators will then come up with new ways and evolve their ways of reaching out to children and targeting them for sexual exploitation. And new technologies are always evolving. And meantime, the victims are afraid to disclose their victimization. And even statutory rape, oftentimes they are sentenced with not with imprisonment. So I think our court system and our law enforcement system really needs to update their practices to better protect the victims. And I did mention that the victims are able to respond better when they are being assisted by support organizations like us. But then there are victims who are don't have the connection to supporting organizations, and they have no knowledge of the legal recourse that they can take. So oftentimes, these people who do not know the relevant information often suffer more egregious abuses and are unable to get the relief that they need. Since we have exhausted all of the questions, we can close the forum, I believe. I would like to thank the three speakers for their contributions today.
Today, I want to thank you very much for serving as a moderator today, and also our presenters, Ms. Lindsay Loh and Ms. Amy Crocker and Ms. Jury Kwan as well on site. So thank you all very much. So today we looked at what kind of cases are happening in terms of the online sexual exploitation in different countries, and we talked about how we can respond to that and how to prevent them. Not just the children online sexual exploitation, we also want to improve the protection of women overall as well. So I hope that today's forum contributed significantly to the conversation of this topic. And I want to thank you all, our speakers and audience online as well. With this, we'd like to close the 2023 WHRIK International Forum on Online Child Sexual Exploitation. Thank you very much.